India has taken the alliance of Israel. You see, alliance comes at a price.
Dr. Maria Sultan on the global impact of the US-Iran conflict.
In future conflict, nuclear power reactors and their safety, whether they are civilian or military, will become extremely important.
One of Pakistan's leading strategic analysts.
Pakistan can very quickly offset any kind of regional and even multilateral engagement against itself. Indian nationals actually provided key support and intelligence support to Israel and United States.
Will India's alignment with the US and Israel escalate tensions with Pakistan?
You see, alliance comes at a price. So India has taken the alliance of Israel. India has taken the alliance of United States. And this means that in future, India will have to lose out on Middle East because Middle East is not going to forget whether it is Iran, whether it is Qatar, whether it is Saudi Arabia, that Indian nationals actually provided key support and intelligence support to Israel and United States in operations against these countries. Whether it was the hitting of Aramco oil refinery for Saudi Arabia, an attempt over there, whether it is a question of Indian citizens providing information and key information against Iranian nuclear scientists and also providing intelligence around their various personnel for US airstrikes to actually carry out strikes with precision, or for that matter, the information it provided to Israel from Qatar by the Indian naval officers is not something which is going to be forgotten by the region. That is the price of Abraham Accords, and that is going to be the price of the India-Israel collaboration. When it comes to Kamkasa, Bika, Lima, and all the other military strategic agreements which the United States and India have embarked upon. As these relationships and these agreements have been supplemented with India-Israel Defense Pact, India-Israel Defense Collaboration, and India-Israel-UAE security corridor. So these things, of course, position India as a partisan player, not as a non-partisan player. And although traditionally India and Iran have been close, but what we have seen on ground is that Indian nationals have been acting in support of Israeli intelligence. They have been working in close cahoots with US intelligence against the interests of Iran and actually carrying out these military options in Iran. This means that if we are actually thinking of a country which can position itself and play any role, it at least has to have sufficient weight in all the three capitals. That's been Saudi Arabia. Pakistan has that because of STMA. With Iran, you need to show consistency and the fact that you have not allowed for any active military involvement against Iran. Pakistan has also delivered that, not now, but also in the last May war, and then even before that in the 10-year Iran-Iraq war. And last but not least, to even have a working, good relationship with the United States as a third party, not as a junior partner in defense. While Pakistan is not a junior defense partner, we have good relations, bilateral relations with the United States, we have excellent relationship with China, and we have equally important relationship with Russia, which is developing. So this basically means that Pakistan is one of the few countries in the region, which is one, militarily strong enough. Number two, does not have an active presence of Israelis agents on ground. So this basically means at least the safety of the Iranian nationals who will come for any kind of mediation can be there. Number three, we have no agenda against destabilizing Iran. And number three, we are not actively pursuing a security and defense cooperation against Iran, or for that matter, against Saudi Arabia and so on and so forth. So this said, perhaps Pakistan is the best option which is available as a mediating force for the region. And what's also important is that the region has understood that with Europe being silent on the Iran war, with Britain dragging its feet, but nonetheless being present for the United States in this current situation where the troops are most likely to aid and support the United States in the next phase of war, the only other regional country which can perhaps play a role and would have significant sway in Iran is perhaps Pakistan. Can India actually do something to destabilize this? Yes. Will there be an information operations by them on this? Yes. Can they actually deliver on what they're saying? Perhaps no. Because for that, India needs to have an equally important and globally relevant significance in not only in Saudi Arabia, but also in United States and also in Israel and also in Iran. it is going to become highly unlikely that United States will choose India as an interlocutor when they themselves are going to be the key negotiators from their side to at least initiate some kind of talks between Iran and United States. The question here is whether or not these talks will move forward. It will depend and will be contingent in terms of whether both Iran and United States believe that they are ready for some kind of negotiations. But one thing is for sure, there is no other country other than Pakistan which can have significant impact in all three capitals and is not considered as a junior partner in at least against the two major protagonists, that is Israel, United States on one hand and Iran on the other.
What does Pakistan gain and risk by mediating between US and Iran?
That's a tough question. No negotiations comes without a price. And whether we like it or we don't like it, while Pakistan is a South Asian country, Pakistan also has a very strong West Asian identity, and Pakistan also has a very strong Central Asian identity. So this basically means we are one of those few countries in the world which have a security matrix which is far more complex, which is than what most countries pursue, because we are touching three different dimensions. And last but not least, we also sit at the mouth of the Strait of Hormuz. So this basically means whatever happens in the global sea lines of communication with regards to global trade emanating from Strait of Hormuz is going to be also a key factor which is going to impact on Pakistan's regional security opportunities. At this moment, this is good news for Pakistan because, of course, Pakistan has emerged as a very stable country. Pakistan has emerged as a very secure country, both in terms of the military opportunities and also with regards to its ability to maneuver a global conflict without getting caught into it, number one. Number two, if the situation intensifies in Iran and there is, another level of ground invasion which moves beyond Karang Island and actually comes to mainland Iran, then we are talking about conflict situation where we would be looking at suppression, we would be looking at ground operations, counter-ground operations, pretty much unstable situation in Iran because of a result of U.S. intelligence and military operations, which would actually happen in succession. This would also mean that military, non-military actors from Afghanistan, such as ISIS and others, would also be operationalized. It would also mean that we will be looking at enhanced presence of Israel and India in Afghanistan. So that is going to become a challenge for us. And on the other hand, when it comes to the security order of the Middle East, the continuous US presence will now be seen with a lot of caution because it's not just a question of having continued presence of the United States in the Middle East. It is going to be seen because the Middle East is going to seriously decide now that is the US presence in the region a source of stability and peace for them, or is their presence a source of insecurity? And given the fact that there is an animosity between Iran and the Middle Eastern countries, they will need to have an independent security architecture. And in this space, SDMA may be perhaps becoming something which will actualize on ground. So this basically means we'll be talking about perhaps a Muslim NATO, the only exception of UAE or Abu Dhabi not being part of it, because Abu Dhabi is part of the US security corridor, part of the Israeli security corridor as such, and with India. This means it will depend in terms of how the post-war security arrangements develop. And Pakistan's role is going to perhaps be very key in shaping that. Because the Arab world has understood very clearly that the United States is not in a position to come up with an independent policy option for the Middle East. They carried out this military action plan without any formal consultation with any of the Middle Eastern countries. So the extent and the nature of the program, the nature of their ability for them to actually stop the war is not something which they are actually at this moment possessing. And third, and most importantly, is going to be Pakistan's significance as FOB Karachi and FOB Gwadar. That basically means operationalization of the Karachi port and operationalization of the Gwadar port as not just a strategic transit point, but also as a major shipping route for bulk cargo and for other cargo points in the future. So this means that there's going to be a renewed importance of Pakistan in global, regional, and international security, economic, and military equations which emerge. This said, this is the potential, and of course, comes with it a lot of challenges which will depend in terms of how soon or how late the Middle East actually stabilizes. Because if the war in Middle East continues, then of course the negative effects will outweigh the positives. But if it stabilizes in the interim, we may be seeing a transition which will be perhaps in the favor of Islamabad. But no matter how you see it, Islamabad has emerged as a major strategic pivot for security and stability in this region.
Can the US Iran conflict destabilize nuclear deterrence in South Asia?
Iran-Israel war has been, for sure, a very steep learning curve for any country which is dealing with deterrence as a policy option, and a country which understands optimal effect of ballistic missiles and, for most importantly, the use of UAVs against a nuclear-powered adversary. From that point of view, what we have understood is that the future warfare is going to be a combination between ballistic missiles, UAVs, and most importantly, a clear indication in terms of how integration and decentralization becomes a necessity for future warfare, whether it is in terms of air strategy, whether it is in terms of maintaining effective deterrence against an adversary, which believes that military options are both usable, and also in the Iran, Israel, and US conflict. This is what we have seen in the case of the United States versus Iran, where the US strategy, although offensive at one end, has remained defensive in the other when it came to defending the Middle East, when it came to use of air defenses, and when it came to using of THAAD and layer defense, whether it was for the case of Middle East or whether it was the case of Israel. So now once we juxtapose this entire scenario on India-Pakistan, we have learned a few things. First thing which we have learned is this, that in future conflict, nuclear power reactors and their safety, whether they are civilian or military, will become extremely important. So this means that the role of air defenses will become extremely important. Although at this moment we have seen that there is no direct targeting by Iran on Israel's program, but what we have seen is that there is immense fear of radiation losses when it comes to civilian nuclear power reactors in the region. Similarly, the villages which have been hit very close to the Dimona reactor indicate that. While this has been the case in the case of Israel, but what we have seen on the other hand has been the direct targeting of the United States and Israel of the Iranian nuclear facilities, whether it was in Natanz, Isfahan, or Bushehr. So this means that if we are going to be having any future military conflict between India and Pakistan, the nuclear power infrastructure for the civilian setup is going to be something which we will have to do an altogether different security review on. Second, what we have understood is this, that decentralization is the key for maintaining effective deterrence, and that the limit of even an adversary which is regionally connected, regionally far more aligned, as in the case of India, which is connected to Israel, connected to United States, not only as a joint defense partner, but as a joint military partner. We understand that this is something which we will have to think it through. This basically means that decentralization and integration will be perhaps key for the survivability of our deterrence option. Number three is, of course, the use of unmanned vehicles or UAVs. This basically means autonomous weapons, AI technology, and all of them can provide an asymmetric advantage versus a much more superior adversary. So from that point of view, if we have a rethink in terms of how nuclear deterrence application is done for South Asia, Pakistan can very quickly offset any kind of regional and even multilateral engagement against itself, whether in a regional setting or whether in a global setting, if it is led by India or India-led alliances with the United States, or for that matter, even with Israel. That said, it does require a very strong review of three things domestically. One, or defensive posture, which needs to become far more offensive in order to ensure that deterrence prevails. Number two, over-reliance on ballistic missile capability, which would no longer just be based on unilateral action points with, limited defensive value, but a weapon system which would be based on MRFing, canisterization, or even for that matter, a system which cannot be defended through an effective THAAD capability. And number three is the integration of UAVs in the defensive as well as the offensive strategy matrix. So this is the first effect which is seen in the case of India and Pakistan, that is in terms of military doctrine and military application. But in regards to the second effect is the larger presence of the India, Israel, US and UAE security corridor which has existed, and the fact that this would mean that we might be having actual presence of the US land forces in the region. If United States goes ahead and gets Prague as a major vantage point, ground invasion. And if that happens, then Iran follows up in terms of what it has said, and it goes for UAE and it goes for Bahrain, then we're talking about altogether a very different situation on ground. So this means that as the situation builds up, one, on the ground invasion, two, with regards to the Strait of Hormuz and the energy impact. Pakistan, for now, is providing a safe haven for global energy markets and also for global energy transit options. But in future, we need to seriously think through that we need to de-link Pakistani ports from the Dubai ports and also to come up with independent shipping line options for us. And number three is, of course, the untalked truth, and that is that if there is any kind of a nuclear attack on Iranian facilities, or for that matter, on major civilian facilities in the Middle East, either by United States or conversely by Iran, on the other reactors over there, there is going to be an implication with regards to radiation effects, with regards to climate change, and with regards to the actual effects of dealing with all of these issues combined. So this said, for Pakistan, the West Asian security setup, as well as the South Asian security setup, indicate that we will be dealing with a much more volatile region for the future, unless and until there is correct assessment of the situation at the global level and more actors come in and create the space for peace. We will be dealing with very turbulent military times, which seems to be on the table for now.